Yes, no problem. I do understand.
You can have a fruitful discussion.
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Again, good morning. I hope you don't get tired of me for today.
It's okay.
But I was tasked to share and present this with the group. It was actually a special request when we did the initial meetings online on what we can cover, what things we need to discuss during the visit to make it both fruitful for both the universities. So this is one of the items which is pertaining to data security and data privacy governance. So basically, just to give you an overview of what I will be presenting or sharing with the group today. This is basically how Holy Angel University, that's why it's in the HA context, on how we strive to ensure that the governance or the framework that we have for security, data security and privacy is in place, not only to adhere to national regulations, but also to ensure protection of the data of all of our stakeholders. So just to start, the overview for the governance or the data security and privacy governance in the university. The framework includes from topmost our university board. So the university is composed of the board of directors, to which our university president is a member, and as a representative of the entire university, is the one who represents us in the board of trustees. And then, of course, for the executive leadership, we have the president together with the data protection officer, who is directly reporting to our president. So this would be the hierarchy in terms of how we implement our data security and privacy governance. And as you can see, it's from topmost in our board of trustees down to our operational units. So in between the executive leadership and the different departments or the operational units in the university, we also have committees, particularly under the ITSS, or the IT Information Technology System Services, and our risk management officer. And then, of course, that has to be cascaded directly to the different department units to where data is actually collected, stored, and managed. So in the operational units, particularly for most of the data that is collected and stored, this would be the Information Technology Department, which is also the ITSS, and the register where all of the student records are kept, together with HR for the employee and the faculty records, and the academic offices together with the different department heads. So what we would see in the framework is that it's top down, it's parallel, and from the development of the policies down to its implementation, it has to be cascaded from all of these different units. Now, in terms of legal and regulatory alignment, probably, I'm not sure if it's the same in Indonesia, at least in the Philippines, even if the law has been acted on since 2012, that's the Data Privacy Act or the DPA of 2012, that is at least our governing policy in data privacy in the Philippines. Although it would be probably some time ago where this has been seriously taken into consideration because of not only the popularity of cybersecurity, but also with the consideration of data being a very important asset. So it has now been, this is deployed by a national organization in the Philippines, which is the NPC, or the National Privacy Commission. So other than the DPA Act of 2012, they would have regular issuances to which every organization supposedly in the Philippines would have to adhere to if they have to collect or manage and store data up to different levels. So this would be the governing body. And in our case, at least specifically in the context of Holy Angel University, part of the alignment of the framework and the different policies and procedures that we follow is adherence also to ISO standards. Specifically, we've been awarded before with QMS, or Quality Management System, but because of the presence or the introduction of the 2101, 2018, which is the EOMS, or the Educational Organization Management System. Part of that would be, one of its clauses is protection of data of the different stakeholders. So these are our governing bodies. At the same time, the different legal and regulatory statements or laws that we have to adhere to related to our own framework. Now, in whichever security and privacy governance, policy framework is, or policy development is very important. So in the context of Holy Angel University, our top level would be data privacy and the security policy. Okay, so these are developed, approved, of course developed and then presented and approved and then communicated within the community and the university. So there are different supporting policies included with the data privacy and security, which refers to acceptable use, data classification, access control, and incident response. All of which, again, are rooted on the DPA Act of 2012. At least the minimum in terms of all of our policies and procedures are all derived. So the minimum requirement is the DPA Act. So any addition to that, any other measures that we include in the university would be beyond what's already required in the Data Privacy Act of 2012. And then of course our procedures and guidelines. But of course, policies and procedures will only be as effective if they're properly implemented, at the same time properly communicated to the respective units, okay? The affected, directly or indirectly affected units. In our case, this is the policy statement that we have. Holy Angel particularly has this policy statement in its data security and privacy governance. So HAU aims to respect each individual's right to privacy and aims for compliance with the requirement of all relevant data protection laws, particularly the DPA of 2012 and its implementing rules and regulations. Okay, so everything that is specified in that act, which is publicly available and provided to all of the units, as mentioned, directly and indirectly affected, would be the basis of our policy statement. At the same time, it's IRRs. Now, if you would visit the Holy Angel website or any other website in the Philippines and you see this symbol, okay, this is basically a proof of registration for data protection and data privacy and security. So this is, I've actually captured this directly from the website, that's why it's a bit blurred, but you would see there directly the commissioner of the National Privacy Commission and the actual date of its validity. So for the moment, at least for the University for Holy Angel, if you try to visit the site, it will expire in June 19 of 2026, to which we would have to register and put ourselves again for assessment so that we will get the validation. So without this, in certain organizations' website, that's basically either deliberately they forgot to include it in the site, but or worse, at least that's the better option, no? That they at least have registered and would have a valid certification and forgot to include it in their site. But what's worse is that they did not undergo the actual certification for being registered for data privacy. And this particular symbol, as placed in the site, is informing people visiting the site of such registration. At the same time, this is posted on every office in the university where data is being processed, where data is collected, where it's processed, recorded, controlled, managed. So that we have to ensure that our data subjects are aware of their rights, are aware of how the data that's collected from them is protected. Okay. So the different stages with relevance to data lifecycle governance would be from collection, use, storage, sharing, retention, up to disposal. So basically, the university processes personal data from applicants. So these are going to be our data subjects from our applicants, students, employees, which would include teaching and non-teaching personnel, our stakeholders. Okay? This could include external suppliers, okay? Which basically in pursuit of the mandate as an academic institution to comply with its obligation with data subjects, to comply with relevant laws, regulation, and orders, and to protect its own lawful interests and rights. Okay? So from the stage of data collection, so like for example, for incoming college students who would apply as freshmen, we have an online application. From that is the basic example of where we start data collection. We have to ensure that they consent to the collection. So it's always the first step from collecting the data that we ask for the consent for such collection. And at the same time, across all offices in the universities, from as simple as collecting data from students when they have to visit the library, or they would have to attend a seminar and they would have to give out like an email address or a student number or a contact number. There is always a privacy statement, a data privacy statement associated with all of the forms. Or else that will already be considered a violation within that particular unit in terms of the collection. Okay? So, our security measures are both for physical and electronic records. So we still have some offices who would collect documents, physical documents. Like for admission, they would require Form 137. That's the document that's requested from their senior high school before they be allowed entry to the university. So we also have other physical records that are kept specifically both in the register and the ANHR. So the policies would have to be specific related to how both physical data and electronic records would have to be protected. So all requests for access, so that's referring to use, all requests for access by unauthorized personnel or a third party shall be approved by our DPO, or the department head, at the same time our data privacy. So there is actually a, they're talking about DPO, usually it's called the Data Privacy Officer, but we call it the Data Protection Officer. So beyond ensuring privacy, part of the major responsibility is actually protecting the data. Okay, so it's Data Protection Officer on our end, but in others they have a person who is usually a lawyer. Like in our case, our Data Protection Officer is a lawyer. I think that's necessary because they would have to address specific compliance to the law. Okay? And at the same time, should there be violation, it should always be rooted on following the laws. Okay? And then for the department heads, on the other hand, they're in charge of making sure all subordinates comply with the instructions set forth in the policy and the instruction and other instructions set by ITSS. So when I refer to the ITSS, that's our IT department, focus on the systems. In the university, which I suppose is similar to most universities now, which was brought about also was sped up by the pandemic, would be the learning management systems, and then our school systems are all online. So we also have a separate system for the payroll. So these are very important data, all of which are protected, or the responsibility in terms of protection lies on the IT, or the information technology systems and services. Okay. So all requests for access. And then all of our forms would always include consent and data privacy statement, as mentioned earlier. Okay. Now for storage, which relates to retention and disposal, our basis is the ISO standard. So part of the ISO standard, whether that's the QMS or the EOMS, would be the manual that pertains to how long a data should be stored before it's going to be disposed. So we have records categorized as active records, inactive records, until they are supposed to be disposed. So if a record is no longer in use, okay, or if it reaches a particular number of years as related to the manual, then it will be placed as an inactive record. Inactive meaning it's still archived, it can still be accessed until such time that it will be disposed. So disposal also follows a specific policy, whether that's a physical record or electronic records. Because we also have third-party providers for the systems that are in place in the university. So it has to be explicitly stated in the contract in terms of how data in the cloud would have to be deleted and disposed of. And then, so that's our basis for the policies that we follow in terms of storage, retention, and disposal. You could just interrupt me at any time should there be questions or concerns you might want to raise. Now, I've included this as part of the data security and privacy governance at Holy Angel University, which is risk management approach. Because as in all ISO standards, risk management or risk assessment should be integrated in all of the clauses. So clauses would refer to what is covered in the ISO standard. And this includes the data security and privacy governance. Now, why is risk management approach is actually, the term would be, it has to be inculcated at all stages. So from even before we put up or develop the policies, or we communicate the manual and the procedures to all of our data subjects, we go through a process of risk assessment, from which our output will be our risk register, and then how do we treat each particular risk. So this is with relevance to our data privacy and security governance. We started with risk assessment. That's the reason why our data protection officer worked there was a point, he was also the risk management officer. So at this time, we have one of the offices in the university is the Office of Institutional Effectiveness. So we have an office that, part of that office is the quality assurance, okay? At the same time, the one responsible for ensuring we adhere to the ISO standards. So I am one of together with Ma'am Charisma, Cara, we are internal auditors in the ISO for EOMS. So the very first thing that we have to do when we go through the audit is the risk assessment conducted in each unit. And then for at least with relevance to data privacy, this is prepared by our data protection officer together with the university president in the executive level. So our risk register contains all possible risks together with the possibility of occurrence and the impact, which represents our risk register. So with relation to data privacy, they've identified all possibilities, including breach, the possibility of a breach. If I knock on wood, if this is wood, I hope we won't have any incident like that. At least for up to this point, we have not had related concerns to data breach. We would have had concerns of possible phishing, but we were able to work on that. But not to the extent of data breach. So that's part of the major risk that is identified in the risk register, which allows for the university to do, you might be familiar with CAPA, corrective action and preventive action, which is one of the purpose of conducting risk management or risk assessment. That is to identify the impact when a risk happens and it becomes a problem, so that we'll be able to identify measures on how we can prevent. And in any case that it actually happens, what are the actual corrective actions? So those are all included in the risk treatment part. And part of how we do the entire risk management approach is the PIA, okay, or the Privacy Impact Assessment. So that's part of what we conduct in the university. So as mentioned, the PIA would be the Privacy Impact Assessment when our PIAs are required. So in our university, part of the manual is the conduct or the continuous review of the procedures and the processes. Recently, we were required to submit it was a number of pages for the PIA for each of every unit that handles data of our data subjects. So we'd have to respond to a number of questions pertaining to how personal data categorized as personal identifiable information, as well as privileged information. So they're actually categorized into three for the personal information. So all of which we would have to identify if they're supposed to be collected, or can we go and proceed with our processes without having to collect such information. So those are part of what we do in the privacy impact assessment. So at least we conduct this annually. So currently, as part of the procedure, that's the minimum when we don't set it as a hard rule to only do it once a year, but that's the minimum. Should the need arises, and that is usually identified by a possible occurrence of a concern or of a problem, that we have to go through reviewing the policies and the procedures, and we'd go back to our risk register if we were not able to properly identify the impact, or if the corrective or the preventive action would have to be improved, okay, or updated. And then for the sample PIA workflow, this is how we have the Philippines, through the National Privacy Commission, has a template that they provide organizations for conducting the impact assessment. But it's usually too generic, that may either point out on some items that is not directly applicable to the university, or there may be some items that are left out. So what we did, particularly our data protection officer, went through that particular template and included other related questions. At the same time, included the assessment or different risk levels appropriate for the data that we collect as a university. So we were provided that. I, for one, responded to one of the assessment, because I'm also part of an office in the university that manages the results from audits and accreditation. So we have to manage how these data are shared with third party, because all of the information for assessment, if you undergo accreditation, you'd have to provide them information that would include personal information or privileged information. So we'd have to discuss the process, the actual process of how this is shared with third-party accreditors. Okay, and then integration into project lifecycle. I think the evidence to that is what I've mentioned, relevance to the frequency of the conduct of the PIA. That we'd have to conduct it at least annually, and then after conducting, the part of evaluating actually is the most crucial and important part. So it's not enough that the DPO will provide all of the offices or the units with a questionnaire and they would respond to that. It's actually the evaluation and the results from the responses that were provided, and the actions that would have to be taken directly responding to some concerns that may be raised from the assessment, or even if there are no other concerns raised, how it can be improved directly. So it's a continuous improvement life cycle, at least in on our end, because that's a major component in ISO, continuous improvement and clause 10. So for security controls, we have technical, administrative, and physical. So for most of the items that we've been covering would be on policies, on the executive and the administrative level. Of course, all policies related to the security and privacy, the direct offices that would usually be involved in creating or developing the policies would be the DPO, the ITSS, and of course, the department heads. Department and unit heads, that would include both teaching and non-teaching offices, where data is collected. Okay, but of course, finally, the approval would be through the executive, our president, and then it will be communicated to the community together with all data subjects, students, and as well as our stakeholders. And training is also part of what we include in the framework, which is very, very important. Like in any network or everything that we protect, okay, we are always only as strong as our weakest link. We always believe in that statement. Even if you have the best data protection officer, you might have someone in the office who would not have any idea about phishing emails and would simply reply and click on a link. So part of what we include in the framework is to ensure that everybody in the university is on the same page and we understand exactly how we will be able to adhere to the policies, okay? And constant check and constant assessments and evaluation also helps in determining where there's a need for improvement. Now, for technical and the physical, this is mostly the responsibility of our IT systems and services. So as mentioned earlier, we have multiple systems in place that holds a lot of personal information of our data subjects. We have Campus Plus Plus, that's the system we use, that's the electronic school system that we use for student records pertaining particularly to their school performance, which would record all of their grades and their transcript for their entire state together with all of the data that they submitted. Okay, so the system provides all of these information to the different data subjects, both alumni and our current students. Part of that electronic system, one of its component is also HR. So holds also very important in personal information, together not only with personal identifiable information, but as well as evaluation of faculty members, performance evaluation by different employees, all of which are also part of that, one of the component in the electronic school system. We use Canvas for our learning management system. It also holds both information of the students, identifiable information, as well as student performance before they are recorded in Campus Plus Plus for transcript. So protection of all of those involves directly, at least in the technical sense, these are the responsibilities of the ITSS. But again, as stated, even with the best configuration, protection of the network, improper use or not proper adherence to the policies can still lead or open for security or opportunities for security breach. That's why training is always inculcated or included in the governance. And then finally, of course, securing facilities, which is usually one of the items even for our students in cybersecurity and network. They usually focus on a lot of the technical stuff, and then they forgot about physically securing the devices, which is as important. So this will involve, in our case, storage facilities. So how they are secured and ensuring that only authorized individuals will have access to them. At the same time, when we talk about security governance, it's not merely limiting access, but actually it should be always available, but available to the right and authorized individuals. So that's what's usually being forgotten. So when we secure something, we tend to limit. Too much limitation in the access will not make it effective because data will no longer be available. So it's a balance of how we ensure data availability, but ensuring that only authorized individual would have access to data with integrity. And then part of the DPA or the Data Privacy Act of 2012 in the Philippines would be the policy or the implementing rules and regulation related to incident management and breach response. In the Philippines, if your organization went through data breach and it was not reported, that's actually against the law. So it's part of the law. The law dictates that if a breach, okay, happens in an organization, it has to be reported, if I'm not mistaken, within 72, if not 48 or 72 hours. But it's specific in terms of reporting. Okay, so on our end, of course, beyond reporting it, because that's part of what the law dictates. Okay, but what's more important would be our incident response process. So as part of the ISO procedures, okay, we have policies and specific procedures in terms of incident response. Okay, so unit heads together with the TPO and the ITSS are trained, okay, to respond to such incident. And if I can also share, I mentioned earlier, in ISO it has to be always preventive rather than corrective, but corrective is part of that, no, in terms of actions. The university also, through ITSS, would subject itself to VAPT, or Vulnerability Assessment and Penetration Testing. So the university employs a third-party organization to conduct VAPT, and recently we've received the certification for the pen testing. Okay, and that also allows us to review and evaluate the current procedure should there be a need to improve certain areas in the policies or in the implementation of both technical, administrative, and physical security. Again, breach notification procedure as mandated by the National Privacy Commission, and would also include in our governance as an escalation matrix. So it also needs to be, this is where training is really important, and communication of policies. Because if it's not properly communicated down to the levels of all of the individuals who would have access to the data, sometimes they're not even aware that the breach already happened. So one of the major reasons that it was not reported is because they did not even know that there was an actual breach. So that's really one of the concerns, from where training, okay, and ensuring that these people are aware with, because some would usually think, oh, I'm not from the IT, that's the problem of the IT department already. But you actually have direct access to student data. That's the reason why, as I mentioned earlier, we have not had any cases, which we hope that will be the same for a long period of time, or for at least we would not have such concern. But there had been intentions, or there had been attempts through phishing on email. That's the reason why the usual email that they utilize or they send to are those that are mostly unused, or those by in the level of certain offices that would usually not have the most technical knowledgeability, because that's usually the easiest way for them to conduct the breach. Okay? In our case, we have a specific procedure under ISO. This is PD 1003 under the Data Protection Officer's procedure, specific only for data incident management and breach response. And then, as mentioned, the training programs will have to be cut across all our data subjects, at least our data subjects that are within the university, because I mentioned earlier that included in our data subjects are applicants. We've had probably students who are applying as freshmen but were not admitted. So we have their records because they applied, but only for purpose of analysis, because we need to know why did they not push through, so they applied, but it's part of the data analytics, but they're no longer processed beyond that particular purpose. And because we don't have control of those data subjects outside the university, we cannot provide the training and awareness to them. So at least we control it within the data subjects that are within the university. So the university conduct what we call Summer Institute. So that's going to be starting next week. All employees would have to go through a series of training and awareness, and part of those would include the policies at the same time. So it becomes an annual thing that is developmental, from awareness down to the communication of new policies and procedures. And of course, as mentioned, frequency and tracking. Again, it's not sufficient that we do it annually, but we'd have to measure if it is effective. So it's together with the assessment, and at the same time, that's the reason why we also conduct regular audits in the university. So in some offices, they may see us already as their enemies when we go, because we have to audit them. But it has to be just established that the reason for that is not to find faults, but to actually find areas or opportunities for improvement. Okay. So, and then lastly, part of the governance would be as mentioned, I was in advance talking about audit and continuous improvement. So we have internal audits, we have continuous compliance checks, and part of the administrative report would be the KPIs, or key performance indicators. This refers to, at least relevant to data security and privacy, this refers to the number of incidents, training completion rate. These are just examples of the data that we provide when we report to the management in terms of key performance indicators. And of course, the continuous improvement cycle. If I may share one of the practices in the university so we have a mid-year report where all unit heads reports to the administration together with the president, where they provide measurement of how they are achieving their KPIs. So we call it a balance scorecard. So there's a balance scorecard that we use when we present at the middle of the school year. We would have to present where we are at to the objectives that we have set for the year. And part of the one reporting are those in the data security and privacy governance. So where they have to identify what actions were taken during the entire period prior to the reporting, which addresses concerns or at least ensures that the processes are continuously improved and communicated. So that's where I will stop in terms of the framework that we follow in the university. We have actual documents and procedures related to the standard, but in terms of the template, I may not be able to share it directly because of certain considerations with its content. But should there be other questions or concerns, I may not provide you directly how we secure the network, but the policies and procedures or best practices we could probably discuss. So maraming salamat. That's terima kasih, and thank you for your time today.
Okay. So thank you, Ms. Abigail, for your presentation. So you may sit.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so now we will start our discussion. Yeah. So I think let me recap a little bit. So with us we have now Pak Angga. Pak Angga is the head of IT office department in our SDU, and we have Pak Honggi also here. So Pak Honggi is the now data security. What is apa? Bapak sekarang jabatannya apa? Mau dikenalkan ya?
Secretary of the board.
Oh, Secretary of the board. Okay. And then we have also Bu Maria here. Bu Maria is from the academics office. So I would like to recap now a little bit. So I think from what Ms. Abigail explained, that in our in your university here, data privacy and data security is managed because there is a law, concerning that, which actually govern for all kind of departments, including universities. Okay, and then it is done so that you can comply with ISO. Is it correct, Bob?
Part of it.
Part of it. So not only for ISO but also for the others.
Yes.
Standards. What kind of standards? The other standard?
The other accreditation would also include areas for protection of student information.
Oh, that is
Like,
also included
we have
in the application.
national, yes.
Oh, okay, okay. And then with that, then you have then now a data privacy officer or data security officer.
Yes, that's also part of the requirement of the law. Every organization where data is processed, they would have to have a data privacy or data protection officer.
Okay, which is actually one for the whole university. Oh?
Yes.
Okay. And then for the governance of the data, then you have several policies, I would say. And these policies is the university-wide.
Yes.
Okay. And then, this is also govern also the data from the students and also from the staff.
Yes.
Okay.
Employees.
Okay, so more or less like that. But then let's now talk about the details. Yeah. So I open now the forum for questions. So questions.
We could discuss.
Yeah. But we have need some question first or not to what we want to discuss.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we can share from the SDU part. Yeah. How is the data and also the security part?
Yeah, okay. So then perhaps who can share this? Angga?
Well, I haven't prepared anything since I
Yeah,
was
it's
That's okay.
in
That's
the
okay. Just a discussion.
Okay, well, it was quite a comprehensive, I think it's more advanced than what we have here. So, basically what we have here is from the, I think we can call it from technical perspective, security.
Yes.
So, the implementation is basically system-wide access. A simple thing, maybe I can describe from user passwords and everything. We have password policy that is set system-wide. All other system is integrated into a centralized security management, which is obviously only me who can access, and the rector, of course. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, we've already as well implement hardware security access. It's only me and the rector as well that can access to, if we want to update a certain policy in the system. And then for the users, we have, actually we use Google Workspace Education as part of our learning platform.
We use MS Teams on our end. It's a Microsoft.
Yeah, well, so
Similar.
We have only two companies in this
Yes.
world, right? So either Microsoft or Google.
Yes.
So we choose Google because and the Google workspace as well, we integrate with our internal academic system, which all the integrations actually is quite, how can I say, all the, I think Charles here has done some penetration testing as well for the system integration. But actually it's not from the internal, but it's from the external.
External.
Yeah, so it's external vendors, not from internal. For user, we haven't done any training yet. So maybe I need to learn from that because user training is not that easy.
Yes.
So that's the challenge. And then how can we enhance the user governance in terms of security threats? Yeah, I think that's more like it. Do you want to add something?
Yeah, so in the last 3 or 4 years, we did a lot for the development in our IT system under our fast sector one and also under lead the development. And I'm as a team, yeah, as the user, yeah, the user with all our study programs. So, and we have several systems. Yeah, we have several systems. The main system is university management system that are collecting starting from the student candidate becomes a student until they graduate. Yeah. And then all are covered by Bu Maria as the head of the academic officer, the operational officer. So that's our core system. And of course, we have several others front end. For example, yeah, we have the website, SQ portal for students, SQ portal for a lecturer, and also at the back end, we do have for the dean and head of study program to see the student active and so on and so forth. Regarding the policy, I think we also have the internal policy. We call it SPME. That's audit internal, yeah, for our quality assurance. So we have the quality assurance, but we don't follow any ISO. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, Pak Angga, Pak Eka, yeah. So we